Under the dim light of the evening, the city of Maizuru, Japan, was enveloped in the tranquil ambiance of spring, creating a sense of peaceful serenity. However, that peace was shattered when a mysterious disappearance occurred, breaking the calm. A 15-year-old high school girl quietly left her home late at night, and no one knew where she went. Her sudden disappearance, with her actions shrouded in mystery, felt like a missing puzzle piece in the otherwise perfect picture of the city. What truly happened that night? What was she searching for, and who pulled her into this mysterious storm? The story begins on a Tuesday, May 6, 2008, in Maizuru, a city located in the northern part of Kyoto Prefecture. At 10 p.m., when the quiet atmosphere of the city enveloped everyone in sleep, Miho Kosugi, a 15-year-old high school student, was in her room. When her mother had fallen into a deep sleep, she quietly woke up, changed her clothes, and left the house alone at 11 p.m. It was late, but where was she going? Miho was a somewhat introverted girl who enjoyed walking alone at night to soak in the peacefulness of the city. She had shared on her personal website how much she loved the beauty of Maizuru, with its fresh air, rolling hills, and crystal-clear seas. However, this outing seemed to be more than just a stroll. An hour later, at 11:57 p.m., she posted an update on her personal website, Found It, with a photo attached. Although the photo was a bit blurry, it was clear that it depicted bright red construction lights. This information would later become an important clue in the investigation. But what had she found? The answer remains unknown to this day. Miho continued her walk, and at 12:50 a.m., she called a close friend and calmly mentioned that she was near a pharmacy along the highway walking alone. After the call, she also sent an email to her brother in Tokyo, though the content of this email has never been disclosed. The next morning, her mother woke up and discovered that Miho was not at home. Initially, she wasn't too worried because she knew her daughter often took late-night walks. However, by 9 a.m., when Miho still hadn't returned, her concern grew. After discussing it, the family decided to report her missing to the police. The police quickly began searching the area around Miho's home. Just one day later, they discovered her body in a small forest just minutes from her house. The crime scene showed signs of a violent attack, with evidence of a severe blow to her head. Strangely, her clothes were missing, and the time of death was estimated to be in the early hours of May 7th, likely due to suffocation after being attacked from behind. Upon investigating the crime scene, the police concluded that this was the first case of its kind in the area. The scene was surrounded by trees and near a small river, a quiet and secluded location. No fingerprints of the perpetrator were found, suggesting that the attacker might have been prepared and worn gloves. The police suspected the perpetrator was a young and physically strong male. The police began investigating Miho's social connections, searching for anyone who might be linked to the case. Miho was a 15-year-old girl in 10th grade. Her childhood had been difficult, as her parents divorced early, and she had always lived with her mother. She also struggled with mental health issues from a young age. Her mother later had a new boyfriend, and though they were not officially married, Miho always referred to him as her stepfather. According to the school principal, Miho was a quiet and modest girl. Her life was different from her peers, as she had gone through many hardships, including changing schools 3 times due to mental health issues. It was only after receiving treatment and recovery that she was able to return to a normal life. A middle school classmate shared that Miho often missed school, but never ran away or experienced bullying. She didn't have many friends at school, participated little in school activities, and had never had conflicts with anyone. Neighbors in her community also said they had never seen her argue with anyone. Miho began attending high school in April of that year, just a month after the school year started. Before enrolling, her stepfather passed away in a car accident. This shock worsened her mental health, and she did not attend class or participate in the school opening ceremony. Despite being on a break from school and having a rather introverted personality, Miho was not the type to stay at home. She frequently visited her friends' houses. On her personal website, she once shared her habit of taking evening walks, and there was even an incident where she was mistaken for a suspicious person by the police. Miho also enjoyed playing guitar, and before the incident, she had been looking for like-minded people to start a band. During the investigation, the police focused on a male high school student who had a close relationship with Miho. There were rumors that they had a romantic conflict, but at the time of the incident, he had a solid alibi, so he was cleared from the list of suspects. Miho's mother, in an interview, expressed her indescribable pain. Her daughter meant everything to her, and she believed no words could fully express how important Miho was in her life. She shared that Miho was a kind girl who had once adopted a stray cat. She believed that if this tragedy hadn't happened, Miho could have grown into a wonderful person in the future. After investigating, the police found no suspicious individuals among Miho's social circles. They then shifted their focus to physical evidence. Through their search, they discovered Miho's clothes in a river about 32 feet north of the crime scene. The back left pocket of her jeans showed signs of abrasion, and her white tank top had a hole, possibly from being caught on something. What stood out was that, despite her head being severely beaten while alive, her clothes were clean, with no blood or other traces. Other personal items, such as her phone, purse, and shoes, were found scattered near the scene. At Miho's mother's request, images of these items were released in an effort to find witnesses. The police also checked the emails on Miho's phone. Before the incident, she had communicated with her family and some close friends, but the content mainly revolved around her daily life and did not contain anything unusual. On the phone, there were only Miho's fingerprints with no signs of anyone else's involvement. The police used data from Miho Kosugi's phone to reconstruct her movements on the day of the incident. Based on her phone call with friends, they determined she was traveling on a highway. After leaving her home, Miho walked along Route 27 for about an hour, stopping at a gas station nearby. This area was in a suburban region, with some places having dim lighting, which explained the blurry photo she posted on her personal website. The police reviewed the surveillance footage from the gas station and discovered Miho Kosugi wearing a white tank top, walking west. After nearly an hour of walking, she approached a pharmacy about 1.2 miles away from the gas station. At a typical walking pace, this distance would normally take about 25 minutes, but Miho took twice that long. On the day of the incident, she was wearing a pair of sandals with thick soles and heels about 2.4 inches high, which were not suitable for long walks. The pharmacy was about 3.7 miles from her house. The police were puzzled as to how Miho could have walked such a long distance. To test this, they sent a female officer of similar height and weight to Miho, wearing the same type of sandals, to walk the route from the pharmacy to her house. It took the officer 1 hour and 45 minutes. After the test, the officer reported that her feet were extremely sore and the heels of the sandals were damaged. Based on this, the police concluded that Miho may have used some form of transportation. Miho's mother stated that their family did not own a car, and the only means of transportation was a bicycle, which was still parked outside their house on the night of the incident. Since the crime occurred quite late and there were no public transportation options, it's possible that Miho had received help from someone. The police confirmed with Miho's friends that she did not have any meetings scheduled. So, was there another reason for her late-night walk? This question still remains unanswered. While the police continued searching for clues, a resident near the scene provided crucial information. Early on the morning of May 7th, near the crime scene, they heard a woman screaming as if she was in an emergency situation. After that, they heard voices from both a man and a woman, but they could not identify who they were. 8 days after the crime, the investigation made progress when a truck driver gave an important testimony. He said that in the early hours of that day, while driving down a road about 984 feet from the crime scene, he saw a man and a woman walking a bicycle. The woman appeared to resemble Miho Kosugi. Though it was dark, the driver couldn't clearly identify the man, but he estimated he was about 20 years old. Based on the truck driver's testimony, the police reviewed surveillance footage from that area and discovered footage of Miho Kosugi walking by. At 1:14 a.m., she was walking alone on the street. 2 minutes later, a man wearing a hat, riding a black bicycle, passed by. They were walking in different directions and seemed to not know each other. However, at 1:36 a.m., another surveillance camera captured Miho Kosugi walking alongside that man, heading toward the crime scene together. So, who is the man? The police took notice of a man named Naka Katsumi, 60 years old, after receiving descriptions from local residents. Naka Katsumi had strange behavior and mannerisms, often wandering the streets late at night and rummaging through trash. His home was filled with various collected items such as metal pipes, scrap materials, and other concerning objects. Some residents reported that he often took these items with him when he went on his nightly walks. Given that Miho Kosugi was attacked with a blunt object, suspicions about Naka Katsumi grew stronger. A nearby restaurant employee also mentioned that he often wore a hat and rode a black bicycle at night. The police showed this employee surveillance footage, and although the image was unclear, the employee confirmed that the person in the footage had a similar build and height to Naka Katsumi. Another witness confirmed that the day before the incident, they saw Naka Katsumi walking around wearing a black hoodie. The surveillance video also captured a man in a black hoodie, possibly Naka Katsumi. After the incident, some people told the police that he had discarded several pieces of clothing, including the black hoodie. Strangely, he also repainted his black bicycle, as if he were trying to hide something. To the local residents, Naka Katsumi was always a troublemaker, both at work and in the community. He was known for frequently arguing with others, and when angry, he could act impulsively, making it impossible for others to predict his behavior. Moreover, there were reports that he showed an excessive interest in young women. Naka Katsumi lived in a public housing complex in Maizuru, without a job, relying solely on social welfare. His apartment was just a few hundred meters from the crime scene, and Miho Kosugi also lived nearby. With these clues, the police decided to question him. Facing suspicion, Naka Katsumi denied any involvement, claiming that at the time of the incident, he had been drinking at various izakaya bars and didn't have time to commit the crime, but there was no one who could corroborate his alibi. Although there were many questions surrounding him, an important clue from a truck driver helped clear Naka Katsumi's name. The truck driver stated that, at the time of the incident, he saw a man about 20 years old, not Naka Katsumi, walking with Miho Kosugi. Even though the surveillance footage showed Naka Katsumi with Miho, it wasn't enough to prove he was the perpetrator. In November 2008, 6 months after the incident, Naka Katsumi was arrested on suspicion of stealing ritual offerings at a shrine and women's underwear. Although there was not enough evidence to connect him to Miho Kosugi's murder, many indirect pieces of evidence pointed to him. The police requested to search Naka Katsumi's home, but his lawyer objected, arguing that the search was unreasonable and demanded the search warrant be cancelled, which delayed the police's plan. After much debate, the police were finally able to search Naka Katsumi's home over the course of 6 days under the supervision of his lawyer. During the search, Naka Katsumi's lawyer attempted to film the entire process and only stopped when instructed by the police. Some people supported the lawyer's actions, arguing that recording the search was reasonable, as Naka Katsumi's room was quite messy, filled with items collected from outside. If the police found anything resembling Miho Kosugi's belongings in the room, it could be used as damaging evidence against him. However, the police did not exploit the items in Naka Katsumi's room to easily accuse him. Instead, they focused on searching for items such as clothing, fibers, or soil from Miho Kosugi's crime scene. Despite a thorough examination, they did not find any useful clues. In January 2009, nearly a year after the incident, the police revisited the truck driver who had provided important testimony. However, this time, they made a serious mistake. The police directly showed the truck driver a photo of Naka Katsumi for identification. Normally, the police would provide a photo album containing pictures of several individuals so that the witness could pick out the suspect, but in this case, they showed the driver only the suspect's photo before the identification. This led to a change in the driver's statement, as he described the man walking with Miho Kosugi as about 20 years old, and later changed it to a man between 50 and 60 years old, with physical features matching Naka Katsumi. This mistake became a disadvantage for the prosecution in the later trial. Based on the witness statement and the surveillance footage, the police arrested Naka Katsumi again in April 2009. 3 years after the incident, In May 2011, the case was tried in the Kyoto District Court. Naka Katsumi was charged with murder and sexual assault. Since there was no direct evidence, the court focused on indirect evidence. The defense argued that the truck driver's testimony had changed and was unreliable. Naka Katsumi continuously defended himself, insisting he had never met Miho Kosugi. However, the police pointed out that during pretrial questioning, Naka Katsumi accurately described the color and shape of Miho Kosugi's purse on the day of the incident. The police believed that only the perpetrator would know this detail and requested the court to sentence Naka Katsumi to death. However, the questioning process was neither recorded nor filmed, and Naka Katsumi denied making these statements. The judge ruled that, prior to the incident, Naka Katsumi and Miho Kosugi had had continuous contact, making it unlikely that someone else could have been the perpetrator. After the trial, the court convicted Naka Katsumi and sentenced him to life in prison. Naka Katsumi disagreed with the verdict, claiming the truck driver's testimony was entirely fabricated, and he repeatedly shouted in court, "Your Honor, I am innocent." He later announced he would appeal the decision. A year and a half later, an appeals trial was held at the Osaka High Court. In the initial trial, the two main grounds for convicting Naka Katsumi were the truck driver's testimony and the surveillance footage. However, the appellate judge argued that both the truck driver's testimony and the surveillance footage were indirect evidence and therefore needed to be considered with caution before being used as grounds for conviction. The judge believed the truck driver may have been influenced during the lengthy interrogation, leading to confusion in identifying the physical features of the perpetrator and Naka Katsumi, resulting in a misidentification. Therefore, the driver's testimony could not be considered reliable. Additionally, the surveillance footage was too blurry, only allowing for the identification of a figure, and while the person in the video was wearing clothing similar to Naka Katsumi's, it could not be confirmed that it was him. When asked how he knew the appearance of Miho Kosugi's purse, Naka Katsumi stated that he had seen it in photos released by the police. During questioning, he mentioned that the police had repeatedly insulted and attacked him, which led him to say that it was something he had seen during the crime. After the trial, the Osaka High Court reversed the decision and declared Naka Katsumi not guilty. Upon hearing the result, Naka Katsumi was moved to tears, feeling that he had finally been exonerated. However, Miho Kosugi's mother, who was in the courtroom, appeared shocked and then broke down in tears, being assisted out of the courtroom. In an interview, she expressed that she could not accept the verdict, believing that Naka Katsumi had tormented her family for too long and that it could not end like this. She decided to continue her appeal. Despite her wishes, 6 years after the case, the Supreme Court of Japan upheld the appellate court's not guilty ruling. However, before the final verdict was made, Naka Katsumi was arrested on suspicion of stealing magazines from a convenience store and was sentenced to 1 year and 2 months in prison. Therefore, on the day of the verdict, he was in jail. Naka Katsumi had a long criminal record and was a frequent inmate. In his youth, he was notorious in his neighborhood and had been sent to a juvenile detention center for extortion. At the age of 25, due to his fiance's family opposing their marriage, he tracked her down to her home and murdered both her and her younger brother. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison. After demonstrating good behavior, he was granted early parole, but just a few years later, he was arrested on suspicion of assaulting a 21-year-old woman. According to media reports at the time, Naka Katsumi used violence to attack a woman, injuring her, but fortunately, a police officer happened to pass by and apprehended him after chasing him for about 130 feet. He was then sentenced to 6 years in prison. The not guilty verdict for Naka Katsumi caused a great deal of surprise and public debate. Some people hypothesized about Miho Kosugi's motive for going out. On the day of the incident, she posted a picture of red construction lights on her personal website with the caption, "Found it," and seemed very excited. This could suggest that she had spoken to friends about the red construction light or had mentioned it. It's possible her purpose for going out was to search for that construction light, and her excitement upon finding it motivated her actions. Miho Kosugi was found in a forest, and the evidence at the scene indicated that this was indeed where the crime first occurred. The area was quite secluded, with few people around, and to reach it, One had to cross a small river. This raises the question, why did she go to this place in the middle of the night? A friend of Miho Kosugi offered a hypothesis about the situation on that day. Before the incident, Miho's mental state had been unstable, and she frequently expressed feelings of loneliness and a lack of protection. It's possible that, while walking outside, she encountered a man on a bicycle who seemed friendly and offered her a ride for part of the journey. Miho may have felt safe and let her guard down. There were rumors that, before the trial, Katsumi confessed his crime to a fellow inmate. When asked by others if he committed the crime, he shook his head. But one night, he subtly admitted that he had originally intended to just follow her, but when the victim saw him, he had no choice but to silence her. However, the authenticity of this rumor is unclear. Some criminals tend to boast about things they haven't done, so this cannot be used as the basis for a conviction. Some media outlets raised questions about the truck driver's testimony. Typically, drivers don't pay much attention to pedestrians, but the truck driver was able to recall the appearance of both Miho Kosugi and the perpetrator. This was quite odd. To test this theory, a reporter walked along the same route at night. The street was darker than expected, and even taking photos was difficult. The reporter suggested that even if the truck driver slowed down and paid close attention, it would still have been difficult to make out such details. Among the various theories proposed, one stands out. Some people suspect that Katsumi might not only be responsible for Miho Kosugi's murder, but could also be linked to the case of another high school girl. In November 2001, an 18-year-old senior named Akina Tanda was found dead in the Tomoe River in Maizuru. Akina Tanda, 18 years old, 5 feet 6 inches tall, outgoing and socially active, was found wearing her school uniform with injuries to her neck and chest, and her button had disappeared. Based on the shape of the wounds, the weapon could have been a box cutter. Her personal belongings were found near the river, but her wallet and keys were missing. Akina Tanda had just secured a job at a beauty salon before the incident and was very excited about it. The last time she was seen was 12 days before the crime. On that day, she had been invited to attend a school festival at a friend's school and had requested to leave school early to take a train there. After the festival ended around 5 p.m., she visited another friend but found them not at home, and eventually went to a park to play on a swing. 2 elementary school children witnessed this. At 5:30 p.m., someone saw Akina Tanda walking alone on a small road along the Tomoe River. This was the last time she was seen. The location was only about 1,300 feet away from where she was later found, and many speculated that she met with harm that evening. The area was close to the river, surrounded by trees, and with few people around, so it wasn't until many days later that her body was discovered. Akina Tanda's family reported her missing, but initially, the police assumed she had run away. It wasn't until her body was found that the police began to take the case seriously. However, because time had passed and key evidence had been washed away by rain and the river, the investigation yielded no results. As a result, even though many years have passed, the suspect has still not been identified. The case of Akina Tanda shares similarities with the case of Miho Kosugi. Both were found near rivers, and the distance between the 2 discovery sites, as the crow flies, is only about 1.2 miles. After Miho Kosugi's case, Katsumi's behavior continued. 4 months after the court's verdict, he attacked a female co-worker at a house in North Osaka, injuring her. He was arrested by the police at the scene. Katsumi worked as a janitor at a hotel, while the female co-worker was the hotel manager. Due to his poor performance at work, he had been fired and, holding a grudge, sought revenge. According to the hotel manager, Katsumi suddenly barged into her room wearing a mask and hat, gloves on his hands, and holding a fruit knife. Before she could react, he grabbed her from behind and attacked. The hotel manager fought back fiercely and was fortunate enough to run out and call for help. She was discovered in time and survived. At trial, Katsumi told a completely different story. He claimed that when he entered the manager's room, he had asked her for his wages, but not only was he not responded to, he was also attacked. He said he had only retaliated in self-defense. During the trial, Katsumi shouted that he should be the one convicted of attempted murder. He also expressed that being in prison was extremely uncomfortable and painful, and that he would not reoffend. However, this statement was not convincing. The hotel manager was severely injured, and although she recovered, she continued to have difficulty speaking and eating. Meanwhile, Katsumi only sustained minor injuries to his finger and face, which made it clear who was the one to have initiated the attack. As a result, Katsumi was sentenced to 16 years in prison for attempted murder. In an interview, the hotel manager expressed her hope that Katsumi would die in prison, as if he were released, similar incidents could occur again. A year and a half later, in July 2016, due to declining health, Katsumi was transferred to a medical prison. His specific illness was not disclosed. After unsuccessful treatment, Katsumi passed away at the age of 68. One notable point is that Katsumi's surname, Naka, was once thought to be of foreign or immigrant origin. However, some media outlets explained that the surname comes from noble families and shrines, mostly found in the Tohoku region, meaning Katsumi was, in fact, Japanese by birth. His death brought some solace to Miho Kosugi's family, who firmly believed that Katsumi was the perpetrator. The previous not guilty verdict he received had become a thorn in their hearts. Every year, as the anniversary of their daughter's death approached, the mother could not sleep peacefully. Since her daughter's passing, the mother would visit the crime scene every month, bringing sunflowers and pink grass, the flowers her daughter loved while alive, and sit quietly there for several minutes. Some friends, relatives, and kind-hearted people occasionally visited the site to lay flowers and pray for her. However, when at work, she never told her colleagues about the death of her daughter, as she didn't want to be pitied. Instead, she would say that she had a daughter and pretend that her daughter was still alive. This helped her feel a bit more at ease. The case of Miho Kosugi was like an open wound, leaving an indelible pain in the peaceful town of Maizuru. The red construction light that the young girl cheerfully called "found it" seemed to have sealed her fate, pointing to a truth that could never be uncovered. The Miho Kosugi case is an example of the helplessness of justice when the evidence is too weak to convict the perpetrator. Although Katsumi's death did not bring closure to Miho's family, they continue to live with an unhealable sorrow, while the truth remains shrouded in darkness. What do you think? Do you believe Katsumi was truly the perpetrator of this crime? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Goodbye, and see you next time.